During the lawless years of the 1920s, a new kind of criminal emerged from the bloody gang wars that raged in every major city in this country. The struggle for power between the ruthless men affected the lives of every citizen. And for more than 10 years, the gangster was accepted as a part of our way of life. Men like George Lucky Willis, Arnold Shotgun Powers, Leon Heine Schmidt, and Nick the Gentleman Narco ruled the underworld with an iron hand. Nick Narco was the last of the crime bosses to fall. Convicted finally on multiple counts of income tax evasion, he was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. And with the imprisonment of Nick Narco, the last of the big shots, the era of the gangster came to an end. A period when crime almost ruled this country.
I saw Nick Narco once when I was just a kid. Scared me to death. Don't let those funny clothes fool you. He was a killer.
And more important, he had one of the most brilliant criminal minds ever known. He was arrested 27 times from 1910 to 1929. 11 times the charge was murder. Not one conviction was obtained.
Colonel, I've seen a lot of these old crime movies on television, but...
Well, there's a lesson to be learned from those old films, too, just as there is from the pictures you just saw. Nick Narco was a known killer. A man who was definitely known to have murdered in cold blood. A man who was in on every despicable racket in the city. Yet Narco never served one day in prison for a crime of violence. His only mistake was in not paying his income tax.
Narco was still a big shot when he was sent up. Still running the syndicate, dope every racket you could think of. The times have changed. We've eliminated the rackets used to run this town.
The reason you saw these pictures today is a simple one. Nick Narco will be released from prison tonight. He's expected to be back in the city tomorrow morning.
But after 30 years, Colonel, what can an old bum like Narco do?
He turned the reins of his racket empire over to other men. Some of them are still alive. For 30 years, Nick Narco has been sitting in a prison cell, figuring on the day he'd be released. He's refused 3 pardons, serving his full sentence. So there'll be no parole board strings on him.
But what can he do now?
You saw for yourself what he did. It's my opinion he'll try to start the whole mess over again. Our job is to see that he doesn't get the chance to do it.
This story did not take place in your city. It might. The police force you're about to see does not exist. It should. Perhaps one day it will. This is the story of one man, dedicated, incorruptible, convinced that crime can be controlled.
Hello, Nick. It's good to see you, Nicky. It's me, Mousy.
Mousy? Well, the years haven't done you no good. Why, you look like you'd been in the stir instead of me. Well, what gives? Why didn't Moran come?
He's been pretty busy, Nick. Come on, there's my car over there.
Well, did he send any word?
No, Nick, I don't work for Moran anymore.
I wrote to Moran. I told him to get my place ready for me.
Well, look, Nick, maybe he didn't get your letter. That's it. He didn't get your letter, Nick.
Now, give it to me straight, Mousy.
I am, Nick. But look, Nick, you got nothing to worry about. I've got a room. You can stay at my place.
You're a right guy, Mousy, but I'm going to see Moran first thing in the morning.
Look, Nick, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Moran says you're finished. You're washed up. You're not going to be boss anymore. There's a lot of changes made since you've been away. 30 years is a long time. And there's a lot of water under the bridge.
Is that so? Well, come on, let's go.
Narco just drove into town with a man named Dan Jones.
Dan Jones? Mousy Jones. He was Narco's old trigger man. He's been working in the warehouse district for 10 years now as a night watchman. Moran didn't meet him.
No?
Oh. Well, that makes it pretty clear that Moran thinks Narco's all washed up.
That makes sense. After 30 years in prison, he's bound to change a lot.
The Lobo Wolf never changes. Where did they go?
They headed straight for Moran's trucking warehouse in the old commercial district.
Narco's old headquarters. I want to see Narco now.
That's what I call class. Who owns it?
Moran. Now, look, Nick, Why don't you wait a few days? Don't push Moran too far.
I've waited 30 years. That's enough.
Where do you think you're going, Pops? Nick, how are you, boy? It's all right. It's a friend of mine. I would have been down to see you, but, well, I got sort of tied up here. You know how it is.
Yeah, I know how it is. You get my letter, Jerry?
Yeah, I got it, Nick. This is not 1929. Things have changed. The whole town's changed.
Sure, Jerry, I know that. But you owe me something. I set you up in this racket.
Well, sure you did, Nick, and I'm not forgetting. Here, here's $100. That'll tide you over. And maybe I can give you a couple of more C notes to get you out of town.
You're the same two-bit chiseler you always used to be, aren't you, Jerry?
Look, Nick, I try to be nice to you, but if you think you can come back here and start muscling in...
These young punks of yours got a lot to learn, Moran. I had this place soundproof when I was running it.
Don't do it, Nick. I was only kidding. I wouldn't dare double-cross you.
Yes, what I was thinking, Jerry. You know, I had a lot of time to think things over when I was in stir. Sure, things change, but people don't. And it's time someone got things rolling again.
But you don't understand. Most of the rackets are washed up. Since Dawson moved in, well, the town's been clean. Of course, I've got a few penny-ante things going, but that's all.
Well, I'm raising the stakes beginning now. And you're backing me, Moran.
Sure, if I can help you, Nick.
I want some money.
Oh, how much? A couple of C's?
Make it 10 grand to start. And what about my place? I told you to get it cleaned up.
Well, it was never used since you, it's just the way you left it.
Give me the keys. And I'm tired of riding around that clunk of Mousie's. I like that big boat parked outside. Give me the keys to that. We'll talk later. Take care of the punk. You keep Jerry company, Mousie.